So again, my name is Craig McHugh. I am part of the Initiative Leadership Group. Jeff tapped me to help him today to host our weekly call here. Um, I apologize right now to all of you who tune in every week for the late night DJ voice of Jeff, and you're kind of stuck with me, and I'll try and live up to the bar that he sets for all of us to be engaging and fun and bring great content. He's already done that the content part because Christine Kites is here. She's going to be talking with us about a new ultimate sellers presentation that's really more relevant to today's, how are we dealing with today's market? How are we dealing with today's seller who is has a completely different paradigm? And again, like I said earlier, trying to figure out what that new normal is for both sellers and buyers. I'm going to be talking in a next week or 2 weeks from now about managing expectations for our buyers, and trying to understand that. And I know we're all going through this sort of new. It's sort of like, it's funny because it feels like the same old, but everybody's. It feels a lot the same but different. It's like we have a bunch of. It's almost like we've been playing this game for a long time, and they just added some rules, but we're not 100% sure how those rules. We're still trying to figure this out. So I think Christine's got some great info for us all that we can try and continue to add arrows to our quiver of things when we're sitting in front of sellers that we can manage that selling presentation and continue to do our jobs with excellence, and while still trying to stay in our new set of lanes here that NAR and our all of our friends have decided that we're going to put us in. So without further ado, Christine Kites, I'll let you take it from here. And
Hey,
for
yeah,
those,
and
yeah,
Craig
for
and
those
I
of you that are
can.
in there, please be interactive. I'm watching the chat, and if you have questions, put them in there. Don't be afraid to unmute and ask a question real time. And then towards the end, we'll also do a Q&A as well. So if you have questions you want to get asked, then we can do that then. So sorry, Christine.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I just want to say hello first. I see some faces on here. And as soon as I get with the presentation, I'm not going to be able to probably see everybody. Just wanted to say thank you for being here and that I could see some faces. I appreciate you all being here. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen that I have here. And if I did it right,
You don't spare on the
I
pink
didn't.
anywhere, do you, Christine?
No, I do not. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. I guess I just wanted to show my pink.
Right?
I love pink. Yes,
Right.
pink is
I'm
everywhere.
picking up on that.
It's my happy color. I just got
Right?
my nails done, it makes me happy. So yeah, as Craig was talking about, Jeff and I were chatting and talking about, hey, what would be a great topic to discuss on Core 90 this week? And we were really talking a lot about sellers and how we're approaching that conversation right now. What are we doing to provide our value? And so I put together some great information for everybody today. I hope you take away a lot from it. And I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback and questions and participation as we go along. And so just a little bit here was myself, Casey, and Giselle. I have a team. There's three of us. Giselle is new to the team and she speaks Spanish fluently. So we're really excited about her to addition to the team. And you obviously know Casey Malin. So just wanted to let you guys know that. So first thing I wanted to ask was this, if anybody could put this on the chat. I wanted to know who we're talking to today. So who's in the room? What kind of years do we have in business? So if you kind of can let me know who's here, that would be helpful. 920, Joanne, Emily 6, team 2, 5, old, 20 plus, less than 1, great. Brand new, yay. 20 plus, 3, And brand new. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with me. I just kind of want to know who we've got in the room so we know who we're talking to, and also how I can lean on some of the expertise that we have here. Knowing that years in the business, we've had a lot of changes in the last 20 years. And that's also the reason why I was just kind of curious who is here and who's experienced what. The next question that I had for everybody is, do you know your disc? Um, and if you do, I'm curious who we have in the room with that. Do you know your disc and who are you? Got an ID? I know that one. DSSC? Anybody else? Joanne? What are you, Joanne? SC? ID? Okay. Good variety so far. I love this. Okay, and so the next question I have is it's not fun. I'm coming. Yeah. If you're not familiar with your disc profile, I wanted to let you know about something that you may not be aware of, that I came across the other day. And going and looking through my EXP Enterprise and my XP and all of those things, I've obviously did my disc first in 2004, and I've done it over and over since, and it has not changed. So I guess I am who I am, and I adapt to my situations. And so that's the other thing, is just to become an expert of yourself is so important in this industry, because we work with so many different people. And knowing more about yourself helps you know how to communicate better with other personalities. So if you haven't done your DISC profile, I want to give you a tip on where you can get a free DISC profile done. If you go into my EXP Enterprise, and you go down over to the left into my business dashboard, and then revenue share, and you click on that, it's going to take you to myexp.com. If you already don't have myexp.com, if you're not familiar with it, go get familiar with that. There's lots of information about you, your business, transactions, your rev share, your downline. Everything is over in the myexp.com. Right on that main page, you click on take a free assessment. And you can click on that, and once you take that, it'll give you your 4 words. What do you most like? What do you least like? So important for you to be honest with yourself. You'll get the most out of it. When you're done, you go back to myexp.com and you click on the results, and it'll always be there for you. So exciting to have come across that. I shared that with my whole team, and we did it again. And guess what? I'm still a DC. So nothing's changed. So the other thing I'm curious though is, in learning more about yourself, um, uh, anybody who's taken the time to do that, what have you best learned about yourself in learning the disc, or through experience of real estate, that you've realized that has been really helpful in working with the public? Adapting to personalities. Does anybody have any ahas from that experience of learning more what you used to do and what you do now?
It's funny. My background was IT, and so very technical for 18 years, and I've learned I can't. I've retaught myself how to speak human, to be able to, like, and maybe that's part of what I think we do, is like make difficult stuff understandable and not make it more difficult. So I think I've had to retrain my brain how to, like, speak in ways that people,
Not speak in acronyms.
exactly. Yes. Not speaking acronyms. Yes. Which was my entire career, was acronyms in IT, and so, yeah, learning how to, engage in a way that also is, doesn't freak people out,
Mm-hmm.
so that's been a change for me, to learn and grow for that.
Yeah, and we all have great intentions in having a conversation with someone. Um, but our own processing, are the way that we work and the way we talk and the way we are doesn't always come across the way that we think it is coming to the next person. And being a DC, that it hasn't been easy to have that natural state of processing in my head, that when somebody says something, my mind immediately starts processing an answer, a solution, those kinds of things. And so I might get this face on where I'm thinking about something, and it's like, it looks serious. It looks like, whoa, those kinds of things. So I've had to make sure that I'm more mindful about my yeah, Joanne, the way that I'm looking and smiling and making sure that my face is matching exactly what I'm actually doing, which is I'm trying to work for someone and do my best for them. And obviously the D is, for me, has been, I'm ready to go get something done. And the minute somebody I'm just going to go and get it done and take action. And just like you were saying, Craig, being a DC is difficult because D is already a bullet pointer and C is a processor. And so when you put those two together, you're kind of almost synchronizing on the communication, where it's just bullet pointing. I don't need to, naturally, I don't need to give a whole paragraph. If I can sum it up in 2 words, why wouldn't I just do that? But that doesn't come across very well sometimes. It comes a little bit too abrupt. So, I wasn't good at essay writing in school. So, it's great to know who you are so you can work with a lot of people. And and there was a recent, I think Lexi did a disc last week, if I remember correctly, or the week before. So, definitely learn more about that. And it's an everyday, thing that we're working with is personalities. And the more we know about ourselves, more we know about other people. This is also just comes to the whole, we're going to meet with a seller and who are we working with, right? So, and then, I did put a couple of things in here, love what you do. And when you change what you think, you will change what you do. Learning and growing as a daily practice. I also was just curious. I'm a book reader, and I have 1 to 3 books open at any given time that I'm working on, and I'm learning, and I'm working to apply. And I was just curious, what book right now is anybody reading that is fabulous, or they just read, or was the one that if anybody was needing to learn a book to have in their arsenal right now, what book would that be? Does anybody have anything that really made an impression on them um, at any time that they would read again, or that they would like to share?
I just finished a book. Hold on, let me mute this. Hold on.
Hey, Liz.
I just finished Matthew McConaughey's book.
You'll have to bear with me, but Glenn Stearns, he was a speaker at one of the EXP cons, and he gave a bunch of people the book. But I finished that book, and it's called Integrity, and it talks about his business and how he built his empire from the ground up. And that's kind of what we're all doing, right? It was a really inspirational book, and I actually bought a few copies and handed them out to people. So that would be a book I would recommend.
Excellent. Okay, so that was Integrity with Glenn Stearns. That's awesome. Thank you, Liz. Craig, you were saying you just finished Green Lights.
Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Light, and I didn't want to like it because I thought this is going to be too syrupy, but it was actually really good. And I was like, and I was funny because I was reading it and I kept like telling my wife excerpts from it, and she was like, I want to read it. So I'm like, well, go ahead. So, but yeah, it was actually really good. I mean, just sort of the thought process of looking for understanding that there are times when doors close, red lights and green lights. And he did a really great job of taking his life and putting into that, like, either whether intentionally or inadvertently doors open and green lights happen, and how do you, continue to, use those and move forward and not get hung up on the red lights or closed doors.
That's an excellent book. I have that one also.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, Craig. I read that book too from cover to cover, and I literally opened it up, and I have never read a book in my entire life. And so
fully
fully,
Yeah.
read little chapters here and there, but I literally could not put that book down. And I was like, from cover to cover, I think I read it in like 3 hours. And I'm like, I love that book. It was really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
highly recommend it. Like I said, I didn't want to like it because I thought, nah, this is going to be, nah.
No, it's great.
It was really good.
That's awesome.
And
So
if you haven't listened to the Audible, you absolutely have to, because
Yeah.
the way he tells the stories is just unbelievable.
It is.
I was just going to
Thank
say
you.
that I have Audible, and I have books that I've actually gotten in my hands, and ones that I feel like I'm listening to Audible where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have that book. I need to touch it. I need to feel it. I need to get in there and work on it. But I have Audible, and I've got a whole plethora of in my library there. I've got a whole library here. One I wanted to share with you that has come across me twice in the last month, and it was Joan Smith Mackin, exactly what. So it's a long title. Exactly what to say to close the deal, exactly what to say to win more listings, exactly what to say to find new leads, exactly what to say to increase income for real estate agents.
Wow.
And so if you haven't seen this one, this has come across, and so me and the team are reading that right now, and we are loving it so far. We've applied it, and that's one of the really loving things that I love about it, is that it's very applicable right now. It automatically starts giving you the language to say, questions to ask, those kinds of things. It's a fabulous book. So Casey,
That's
if you,
exactly what to say for real estate agents.
yeah.
Right.
Yep, there you go.
Got it.
The other one, the other one that I'm currently reading is Nine Figure Mindset. And I'm not sure if you've heard of this one by Brandon Dawson, but this also came across. I'm always picking up a book through either a Zoom, through reading something that refers to another book, listening to somebody talk about a book they're reading, and I'm picking up on those things. And so this is the one I'm currently in right now. The foreword is by John Maxwell, which also is very interesting because I love John Maxwell and I've got a lot of his books. However, this one has been really, really great. I'm already on to chapter 11 in this book. And I had a couple of takeaways that I wanted to share with you. Just little things that he had said in here, that one was a tough love from a friend. If you want to know where you're going in the future, just listen to what you're talking about right now. And so that's also just the concept of what I was going to say in starting off this presentation is we've got a lot of changes that are going on right now. And so how are you working with those changes, and what are you saying about them, and how are you applying yourself with those changes? So I'm going to get to my next slide here and just talk about market shifts really quick. We have a lot of people in the room that have been here 20 years, 3 years, under a year. We have a variety of agents here. And there have been plenty of shifts, market shifts that have happened since 2000. And some have been unforeseen, and some are predictable shifts that we experience every year. And just in the last 4 years, though, since 2020 forward, we have experienced a pandemic, a shift that is very unforeseen, that made a dramatic impact into our real estate business. We've had a seller's market, a buyer's market, and now we have an NAR market. Just in 4 years, we have seen these things. So the one thing that is constant is change. And the one thing that is real estate brokers, everybody who's on this call, even the one in the less than a year and now present, you're entering a market shift, and or you've seen a couple of market shifts, and so it's important for you to see that the high interest rates that are being talked about are actually very normal. The low interest rates were actually very unnormal. And we experienced a lot. I know Joanne mentioned 20 years. There were several other people who had mentioned some shifts. So give me something, though, with our seasoned people in shifts that you've experienced in your business. What have you had to make sure that you've done consistently, or how do you make it through another shift, or how do you address those now that you've been through one or many?
For me with shifts, I mean, I've both in my other careers, I've seen, we've all seen sort of the cyclical nature of our economy. I was interesting. You and I were talking earlier about, the NAR settlement and, the last 4 years. I mean, it feels more like a swerve from one side of the road to the into the ditch and out, and it looks like a crazy reel of somebody like just swerving down the road. Is what it doesn't feel like a slow shift, just because
Mm-mm.
so much going on. But I think the person that said that they're new to the market. I think people that are new right now, and if you are new and you're like, man, have I made the right choice? It's like, I think you're in a perfect spot. And you mentioned this earlier, Christine. I think you're going to talk more about it, because you're going to learn the hard way. You're going to learn how to climb the tree to the top to find the fruit, and then when it's good, it's just going to be great. I think a lot of folks that came in the last couple of years, and I've been talking with a lot of them, and they're just like, "Oh my God, like, what am I going to do?" It's like, this is not normal. I keep telling them, like, this feels a lot more like normal to me than the last couple of years.
Yeah,
So,
and so, you know, the I was talking with an appraiser the other day, and his attitude is that it's exciting. And I said, "Oh, exciting? I don't see this as exciting." And it's really how you look at things, right? And so where your mindset is, and how you're going to apply yourself forward. And that's kind of where I wanted to start off with is, know yourself and know others, and then work with the business, because this is we are going to see changes, positive and negative. It'll feel like negative. There's always a silver lining on the other side of it, or you need to hopefully see that there's a silver lining on the other side. And it's just all the way that we approach things on how what we're going to stick around, we're going to be successful, and we're going to learn, we're going to grow, and then we're going to be even better on the other side of it. And that's how I feel about all of these unforeseen. And then we have our usual predictable shifts. So the newer agents in the market here in Oregon, I'm not sure where everybody is right now. We have all 4 seasons. We have school time, we have tax time, we have seasons, we have everything. So there are natural, predictable shifts within the highs and lows of inventory, and like those kinds of things. Things are not consistent throughout the year. So there's always something that feels like it's shifting in a sense, whether it's a serious market shift, or something that's predictable where we know it's coming. What are we going to do before it shows up?
I want to add something.
Yes, Joanne.
The general plight of the realtor is that you're either going crazy, completely overwhelmed, no life, trying to serve all of these clients at one time, or you're like, oh my gosh, I have nothing in the pipe. What am I going to do? And so I think what I've learned, one of the things I've tried to, well, you have to, in order to survive in this business, is to say, okay, I actually have time right now to rest, because my phone isn't ringing off the hook. So what am I going to do to go do something fun? Or what am I going to do with my family? Or what am I going to do to get outside and enjoy the sunshine today? Instead of being like, oh my gosh, I've got to do a bunch of cold calling. I mean, this is just me personally. People are different, but what I found is that I have to enjoy the rest and the pauses in my business, but I also have to be able to enjoy, okay, this is the time that I'm really busy. This is the time I'm making hay while the sun shines or whatever. And I know that this isn't forever, because I'm going to have this little lull at some point when I can rest. So to have the right mindset when you're working really hard and when you're resting, so that you're not just always in a panic because you're too busy, panic because you're not busy. Find the balance to be able to, like in this summer, I haven't been super busy, and I've really enjoyed that, because I know that when in fall, when it starts raining, I can get out and work, and I don't mind working when it's pouring down rain, whereas most people want to be in with the wood stove. I'll be out working because I got to enjoy the sunshine and be out playing in the summer. So it's just finding finding your jam and what works for you.
I love that, Joanne. Definitely taking moments to regroup. instead of stress out over the things. Is like take a breather, figure out what those things are that help you regroup. I personally love working out when I'm feeling a lot. I just feel like I'm built up with energy and I need to expel the energy that's going on inside of me. So I'm usually just, okay, I'm throwing on clothes and I'm going to the gym. I'm going to get on a step mill. I'm going to get on something. I just need to move. I need to go. And it helps actually my mind to just release stuff as I'm going through that process. So everybody has their relaxation, could be a spa day. So thank you for sharing that, Joanne. Self-care. Yeah. So let's get started now in talking about our sellers. Let's get into the process of being the expert. So before you're even, yes, we've got a seller appointment or about to have a seller appointment. What are we doing ahead of time to prepare to meet with a seller? Are you very familiar with our market right now? Because maybe you don't have a seller appointment, are you looking daily at what's going on in the market? Are you familiar with it? Do you know what's active? You know what's pending? You know what's sold? How they sold? How many days on market? Do we know what kind of financing types are going on right now regularly? Are we seeing FHA, VA, conventional? Are we seeing the cash buyers? Are we seeing things go over, under, price reductions? What are things looking like? Do we see any things going on with appraisals right now? Have you heard anything? Are you in conversations with other agents to know how they're doing and what's going on? And personally, I've seen appraisals meet value and I've seen appraisals not meet value right now. And I actually just finished an ROV, reconsideration of value, where I took time, which takes a lot of precious time to dive in to hopefully see an adjustment to that appraisal. Unfortunately, the appraiser didn't see it my way or the account executive's way of 30 years at the mortgage company. And so we ended up having to negotiate a lower price on recently. But those appraisals and the guidelines of the appraisal. So are you familiar with do you have the cheat sheet that says, if you're walking in to talk with a seller, that says these are the standard things that an FHA appraiser is going to look for, a VA appraiser is going to look for? Are you prepared with that information before you walk in the door? The NAR, are you familiar with that? Are you completely up to speed on that? Do you really know everything about it, or you feel like you just know a teeny bit, or you only know the buyer side of things? Have you looked at the seller forms? Have you looked at the buyer forms? Where are you at with it? And then properties, are you familiar with neighborhood specifics? If you are going out to a property that you're going to be listing, are you familiar with that neighborhood? What's going on within that neighborhood? The HOA, if they have an HOA, do you know what's happening with it? Did you get the CC&Rs for that? Did you breeze through them just to even see if there's anything oddball within those? All of these things are becoming an expert within certain communities that do have CC&Rs, and you'll know different things. Sometimes there's a limit on dogs. Sometimes there's a limit on chickens. No. So, we had a buyer one time that was purchasing a small street. There was a new subdivision, it's just one cul-de-sac. And she had 4 dogs, and the CC&R said you could only have 3. She almost did not purchase that property because it said 3 dogs and not 4. So are you familiar with just little things like that within certain neighborhoods? Be specific, know those things, know what those HOAs are. If you're in an area that have quite a few developments and this one's this and this one's that. And then, the other things that you could be doing to be more aware of what's going on is going out to those broker tours and open houses on the weekend. So Casey, myself, and the team, we always look at Saturday and Sunday open houses, and we're like, oh, what's going on out there? Where are we going to be today? Oh, could we pop into those open houses, say hi to an agent, find out if they've had any traffic, what's going on? Is it under contract yet? How long has it been on the market? And I'm previewing property. Maybe it's going to show up later that maybe I run into somebody who was interested in that, but it's under contract now, or now it's in my CMA list of a sold property data. And now I'm able to go, oh, well, I've actually saw that property. There's so many different things that you can be doing out there that's preparing you for the future appointment with a buyer or a seller. Joanne, paint color requirements is helping on having a purple house. Yeah, exactly. The HOA guidelines. Yeah, the CCNRs. So different ways that you can become an expert. So then we have other ways that you can prepare for your seller appointment. Right now, we're looking at how are you setting yourself apart from the next agent when you're going into a listing presentation? You know, what value are you representing there? So are you going to represent with your negotiations, how great you are? Are you going to have stories about that? Are you going to have those laid out in some way? Is it going to be part of your conversation? Your testimonials. Do you have your testimonials on a sheet? Is it in your presentation? Are you just talking about it? Is it just on your website? Is it anywhere? Is it nowhere? Testimonials, I think, are going to be very imperative right now to say, hey, everybody loves working with me because. And start advocating those everywhere and ask people for testimonials. If you don't have enough, go get them now and find ways to share those with people and, you know, let everybody know why you're a great agent to work with in selling a home. Then the 111 to-dos from realtor.com. Has everybody seen that out there? It's been circulating around here and there on either YouTube or Insta or wherever it is. And so I've come across it. It's up here in my slides so you can kind of see it. I also have the link that I can share with you. This is the be ready to buy a home. You know, here's your next 111 things to do that realtor.com put out. And so I was just listening to a meeting with Leo and Austin Chevron in our company EXP, and Leo happened to mention, wouldn't it be great in your listing presentation to actually share with your seller the importance of a buyer's agent and their role in the transaction and what they're doing out there. So when we're talking about preparing your seller for sale, we're not just talking about your side of it, but there is going to be a buyer agent on the other side, and there's now no negotiations that are going to take place. How are you taking the initiative to talk about those things up front before you get to the table with an offer? Raymond, I see you have your hand up.
All right, cool. Is my microphone working?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So yeah, so what I do as a newer agent, and I've picked this up from a lot of actually a lot of you, and a lot of how you all corrugate with how you do your marketing, and I've picked up some traits here and there, and I've kind of made up my own way of doing things. So I found that a lot of things that I've picked up from these EXP webinars is education. That's been super, super informative, and not just educating other realtors or agents, but also educating first-time home buyers. So I and another lender that actually joined one of my Facebook groups decided to start educating first-time home buyers on, you know, the process from debt to income ratios and, you know, lowering their debts to be able to be qualified for loans, and the process on the loan side that he talks about. And then once they're pre-qualified, pre-approved, and then what I do on my side of showing them the homes and, you know, and making sure that the negotiations are all there. And, you know, and then on the Facebook side of things, when I did a post a while back that I picked apart some other pieces from another loan officer, but there was a list of about 86 or 83 items that a buyer agent does for their clients and what makes our value valuable. And then in another video I did was what makes the seller's agent valuable as well too, and why, you know, working with a professional can avoid a lot of, because there's, my biggest thing is that I come from a background of a lot of shady deals and stuff like that, which I transitioned into what I call the light now as a realtor. I bring to light and educate a lot of sellers and buyers that this type of stuff does exist out here. And my job is to also avoid those circumstances that you might face later on when listing your home and getting, you know, taken advantage of. So education, I think, is really, really important in today's market because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
I love it. I love it. Yes. And there's lots of different ways to find that if you're looking for it, right? So if you're not looking for the education, sometimes it falls in your lap. Otherwise, you can go start looking for it on YouTube, on the world, through Facebook, through our community groups, the communitycenter.com. Lots of different ways that you can get yourself up to speed and educate yourself, working with other lenders, like you're saying, find out what's going on with that, and the rules and what they are and aren't doing, teaming up with somebody who is very aware and knows how to help you in structuring, the offer. That's excellent. Thank you, Raymond. So, in preparing yourself for a presentation with a seller, there's other things that you could be doing ahead of time to look at, value items. I have a copy of it over here to the right. Welcome home. I put together this cute little sheet that talks about the utilities, the appliances, the smart features. I walk in the door in my presentation. It's going to automatically say, okay, what do you have here? Who are we connected with? What do you got going on? What appliances stay? The idea of walking into seeing a seller is also that the assumption that you're taking a listing. So my assumption of walking in the door is I'm taking a list and not, I wonder if they're going to list with me. So it's also a mindset that I have is I'm just already walking in with everything that's needed and required for the conversation. And to show that I'm ready to take a listing right now and prepare their home for sale. Do you need to have a lead-based paint pamphlet in there? Do you need a home warranty on the property? Not sure if everyone is aware here. Also, America's Preferred Home Warranty, and I'm sure there might be some other companies, I'm just very familiar with America's Preferred, allows you to place a home warranty on your listings at no charge to you or the seller. And so why wouldn't you want to take that into your presentation and say, oh, and by the way, I'll be placing a home warranty on your home when you list with me, and have that discussion and that pamphlet in your presentation. More info on that. Yeah. So the rep for our area is Destiny. Believe it or not, that's my daughter's name. I believe Destiny is and I can share her contact in here.
And it's in EXP. It's all the same. It's America's Preferred Home Warranty, right? That's who they use.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and we've used them too. They're great.
Yep. And then what should the seller expect from you when working with you on communication, on showings? What's going to set you apart when you walk in the door and say, this is how you're going to hear from me? This is how I'm going to handle showings for you. You have 2 children and 4 dogs, or 4 children and 2 dogs and 1 cat. What does the house situation look like? And how are you going to show up and say, how are you handling showings for them? What are you going to do different than any other agent? Are you going to talk with them about a pre-inspection? Are you going to pay for a pre-inspection? Do they need to have their HVAC system serviced? Have they had it serviced at all since they've owned the house, which is sometimes no, and they've been there for 10 years. Do you have an HVAC that you can say, well, they're providing my clients a discount of X. Here, let me get you scheduled on an appointment right now. Again, assumptive. Everything is always assumptive when I walk in the door, and also providing the value. Professional cleaning or carpet cleaning that needs to be done. Are you going to show up and say, hey, I've got a carpet cleaner and I'm going to make sure that that's done when you sell the home and you're moving out? Don't worry about the carpet cleaning. I got that, or I've got the great company for you that's going to give you a discount. Professional cleaning of the house. A sewer scope. That's very popular right now that I see on home inspections, is they say radon sewer scope, professional home inspection. Do you need to talk to your clients about what inspections are going to look like when you're walking through the house, the sewer scope, how much that costs, that it's a thing now if they've never had a sewer scope done? All of this kinds of stuff is you being educated and being aware of being prepared, not preparing the seller to sell a home for an offer that's going to come. So you're being upfront and ready for that offer before you even taken a listing. Craig, I see you went off mute. Did you have
Yeah,
something?
and I think it's an interest, it's funny, it's because I have, even for myself, and I've been working through this and struggling with this to a degree of, you know, it's, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the market was crazy, it was pretty much like all I need to do is put the sign in the yard and this house is going to sell. It really wasn't that I didn't need to do all of these things. And so now with this shift for me, it's like, okay, now I need to bring value, but I also need to, we are in a different market. These are buyers are far more discerning. They have a much higher expectation of things of this house being perfect, this house being move-in ready. How close can we get it to that? And also that balancing act of, how much is my client willing to do for
Right.
their house.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. That was, one of the things I was also thinking about was, in our shifting market that just, went from just a year and a half, 2 years ago, like you were saying, Craig, we didn't have to do much but put a sign in the yard and 8 offers within hours. Okay,
Yes.
within 24 hours, we had 8 offers on a house. Was the seller having to do anything? No, they didn't have to do anything to the house. They didn't have to worry about an appraisal. They were getting more than plenty of money, and above asking price. And so now that is not a market that we're in. And so it's not as easy as just putting a sign in the yard and the buyers will come. We have to prepare that seller and prepare that home for sale.
Yeah.
Because when the buyers are coming, they're going to be looking at condition. They're going to be negotiating conditions, not only their closing costs, the condition of the house. And are you being prepared? Are you preparing your seller for a realistic buyer
Right.
that's in our current market right now?
And actually, I have two listings right now that I helped them buy the house. So they've been in the house. We're now selling the house, and it's actually been interesting because I had to go to both of these now sellers and say, like, hey, we need to do more work here. Like, we need paint, we need, both of them said to me, and it was kind of a like, oh, weird moment for a second. It was like, this nobody did any of that when I bought this house.
I didn't,
Like,
yeah.
the paint, it's the same paint from when I bought it. Why do I have to paint it now? It's like, well, different market. So it's like, it's kind of a little bit awkward of like, well, you helped me buy this house and you didn't ask for any of that stuff. Like, why are you telling me
Right,
now?
because
Like,
we couldn't. Exactly. Right. We
exactly. Yeah,
couldn't
but
we
it's
couldn't
like,
do anything.
they don't see that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
And you may be entering a home of somebody you didn't personally sell that house to. However, they bought in one of those times, and that's the conversation that might show up. Craig is just giving a plain example of what you might run into. And so you being an expert and saying, well, let me tell you about what's going on right now, what was and what is. And this is what the average and standard that's happening now, and what the expectations are from the buyer just to even get an offer on the home. So these are some of those things. Paid X when I bought the house. Yeah.
Yeah, Raymond, that's an interesting point. We get that a lot too, especially if we have a first-time buyer and when they go to sell, they're like, what do you mean I have to pay 6%? What do you mean I have to pay all the commission? It's like, well, when you bought the house, the last guy did, but that's not on their grid, it's like, or they'll do the math and they figure out what their proceeds are. But, last time I didn't pay the commission. So like, they don't even factor that in. It's like, yeah, there's commissions now. And they're like, well, that wasn't a thing last time. It's like, no, you're right, it wasn't. But now it's your turn to pick up the tab.
Right. And so in preparing all of that, deciding what you know, what you don't know that you figured out, how you're going to put your presentation together, what do you feel is going to be in it? You get all of it together, and you decide what that presentation looks like. I personally use a 3-ring binder with my presentations. I literally have a glossary with tabs in it, and I have loaded amount of information for my seller. I always feel that the more is better, because it's just like the DISC profile. I'm going to be walking in, whether I know about them or I'm just learning a little bit more about them. I have all elements of DISC all over in that presentation. I can skip through it anywhere I want to. If my D shows up, I know exactly where to go. If my I shows up, I know exactly where to go. all of that, every bit is in there for them. I haven't left anything a stone unturned, and I'm leaving that with them. I know a lot of people are, you know, their presentation is maybe the same one for everybody. Mine is tailored to that home. So, you know, in a presentation, kind of like my general tabs, I'm going to have like an about you, company information, all that stuff about, you know, the team, history, testimonials, all those fun things. There's going to be a tab for that. We're going to have a whole tab full of disclosures. Everything that we really need them to see in there is going to be in there. Overload them with that information. Your wire fraud, your ABA, your FERPTA, everything they need, lead-based paint, the home warranty, everything that you need to give them, present ahead of time. The agency pamphlet obviously is my first disclosure within that. And then you have your subject property. Tell them about their property. This is what I know about it. This is how I found information about it. This is where anybody can find information about it. And confirm that information with them. You know, the sellers that you're meeting on the deed are the same that's showing on the deed that you're meeting with. The size of the house, and, you know, all the different features, you know, as far as the plat map and all those fun things. And then you're going to have your data, right? So that's going to be your research that you've done specifically for that house that you're now going to have loaded in there. You're active, you're you're under contract, you're pending, you're sold, and you're going to lay that out in there and go through that. You may be where you're going to have your appraisal guidelines set in there. Maybe you're going to have the information in there that's going to say, okay, based on what I'm seeing, the usual buyer is purchasing with an FHA loan. See here in my data that tells you that. I feel that I don't manipulate data. I let the data tell itself, and I have all the information that I can to represent exactly what I need to convey to that seller, how I want to want them to learn what they need to know. So I make sure the information is there in the data. And with that, the sales prices and all those kinds of things, you're going to come to a decision on what that price looks like, right? The price is always very important. You know, you're going to sit there and have that conversation. Are you going to have a net sheet ready for them, a full net sheet? Or maybe you're going to work with one of the ones that gives you the varying prices. If it's sold for X, you're going to get X ones. That's the one I like using on my first presentation, because there's always a range that I'm talking about in a price range. Maybe I've already collected what they owe on their mortgage. Maybe I haven't. It's not going to deter me from having that range net sheet where it's going to say you sold for 450, you're going to net X. But you know what? I didn't know what your mortgage, your loan balance one. What is that now? And now you learn it. Okay, let's minus that through here, and now you have your net. And you have varying numbers in there, and then they're going to see. Sometimes, as we know, sellers need to see their end result, not that first number. They need to understand, what am I getting? That top number is not necessarily that result of what they're getting. So, you know, you apply that, and when they see that, you usually see yeah, okay, like they know where they want to be. They want to see this number, and you're obviously getting you know where they want to be, and hopefully it's in the same zone that you were hoping that they were going to be, and it's not going to be a difficult conversation on price. The other element about price is, don't make it so difficult on yourself. So normally when I do that net sheet, I have your standard stuff, you know, your taxes, all the prorations that are standard in there. Right now, you can decide how you want to represent the data as far as commissions go. You can have yours in there. You can talk about buyer agent commission. You could talk about closing costs. I don't usually have things in there that I not like prior NAR. I wouldn't have closing costs for the buyer in there. I would say this is before, you know, repairs, a buyer agent commission. When an offer comes in, there might be other adjustments to this. So you can decide how you can address that. But you don't know if you're going to get a cash buyer or not. So, you know, you can't always address closing costs if they're, you don't know what they're going to be. Then you're going to have, you know, maybe you'd like to provide that listing agreement and have that conversation in there. One of the things I picked up on the last meeting I was at too was the addendum that we have in the ORA forms that shows the concessions. for the buyer and the BAC in there. And that addendum that is now going to likely be on offers that the seller is now going to start seeing. Why not talk about that ahead of time and show them where it's going to show up and how it's going to look, and have that conversation, because that will be a form they're going to see later. Same thing goes with a buyer. And our buyers, we've always had a copy of the sale agreement for our buyers, a sample sale agreement. So why don't you put something in for the sellers to see what things might look like, and they're more familiar with it. It's not so scary. You can have conversations about it. And then, of course, you're going to have your prepare your home for sale. Whatever you have in there, I have the whole guidelines of prepare your home for sale, the cheat sheet of every room to room. EXP has that on the EXP marketplace. If you want one from there, you just plug in your face and your name and you print it out. You can have it in your presentation. I work with an interior designer and stager, and so most properties usually need her personal touch or conversation. And Craig, you and I were chatting about this yesterday, about walking through a home with a seller. When you're at that presentation, you've taken time to walk through that house and sort of look at things, see the paint, see the dry rot, see the whatever, that have conversations as you're walking through. Hey, you got an HVAC system. When was that serviced? Oh, I see some chipping paint over here. Oh, what's going on over here? All those kinds of things of preparing. And also is the house they're just going to pick some things off the floor and we could take some pictures, or do we need a little bit more stuff in here going on? Are you going to be the bearer of that news, which can come across negatively sometimes to your client? Or are you going to say, you know what, I hire an interior designer stager to come in and meet with you, go room to room, and give you some tips on how to prepare your home for sale?
Yeah, and that's been honestly, one of the best dollars that I've ever spent on a listing. I have and she's a stager organizer. And I think she charges me less than $200. Almost it's $180. She's there for 2.5 hours. She goes room by room and says, like, do this, move this, let's get that out of it. And I just tell my clients, like, she just looks at the world with a different set of goggles. She looks at the world as a buyer is going to look at it, and a photographer is going to look at it. And what I've found is, I think a lot of people stall or put off selling their house because they just don't know where to start. They don't know, like, what's the thing where should they either, like, I'm not going to do anything, or I'm going to do everything. It's like, I'm going to, like, take everything down, and so the other thing it does for me is, I don't have to put myself in that awkward situation where it's like, hey, the lava lamps are cool, but
Right.
like, you just don't know. It's like, that's my pride and joy. It's like, great, can we put it in a box? I can take it to your next house, but it relieves me from having to have, like, awkward conversations about, like,
We want them to still like us, and
yeah,
we don't want them to not like us because they think that we didn't like something of theirs.
right. That way they don't like Denise, and then they still love me.
Right. And it puts you two and two, when you know that you need to have that person walk in, it is perfect to separate who you are and who she is. So they're looking at you as the professional real estate broker who's going to list and prepare the marketing and showings and buyers and offers and all that. And then she is there specifically to look at what things look like. And then they go to her with the eyes of, should I do this and should I do that? And is it okay if I leave? Oh no, she said nope, that's got to go. She said that has to go. And they look at her as the professional and doing it, and they have no problem. They don't get hurt feelings over it, because she knows your Denise is probably like my Margaret, where she knows exactly how to speak to people calmly and nicely, and not let everybody feel upset because, well, they were, not in the 90s anymore, or, however
Right.
she talks about things, to help people understand and get agreement
Honestly,
with
my
them.
biggest fear with Denise is that, and I've had this happen, people have said, like, we really like the way our house looks now. Like,
Yeah,
maybe we won't sell it. I'm like,
exactly.
like, don't kill it, just get it ready. But, like, I
We've
don't
been
know,
meaning
they're
to
like,
paint that room. We've been meaning to do that. We meant to do this.
I know. Or
And
they do all the things, and then they're like, we kind of like our house. I'm like,
It looks
no.
great. It looks great. And she doesn't just go on the inside. We haven't even talked about the outside of the house, right? And preparing a home for sale is also the curb appeal, walking up to the house and going around the house. And what does all that look like? And, if you do have, you can do this, or you can hire somebody to do this. However, go around and have this conversation about preparation of for buyers to come and look through this house, and also the photography and all those kinds of things, is getting them in agreement to the condition of that house. It is really frustrating, and I feel bad, for when I do see listings online where I see just tons of furniture in every room, and you just know, oh gosh, I know that they probably tried with that seller to have the conversation, and obviously they were unable to really get things out of the house and go through room to room, and you've got pictures just full of stuff in every room, and it's kind of sad, because you just know that doesn't represent that house as well. It's probably going to take longer, and you can utilize those pictures online to even show. I mean, you share with your client on how and why we do the preparation for sale. And you can even show the listings that are currently online that haven't sold, and show the pictures of those listings. Use the data to your advantage, whatever it looks like. Pay attention to the data and how you can use it for your conversation at the table with your
I've even
seller.
done before and after, like before staging and organ. Now, before Denise gets there, like I'll take a picture when I'm there, just doing my initial, and then after she does it, and I've even come back and I've been like, damn, this was really good. Like, I like what you did.
And then
So
when you're on a time crunch, if the seller doesn't have time to make this appointment, and they can really get stuff done in the house, then do what you can do to help them get that house ready quickly, because they're on a time crunch to do it. And give them tips on how those rooms should look. I have pictures from, like Craig was saying, past situations where it shows the before and afters. And so it's like, okay, well, this is kind of what it was. This is what it really should look like. And it's just the tips of like, well, you can do it. I don't need to wait for her to come and tell you to go pick up that room, and maybe to put the books this way or that way. But when you do have a seller that needs a little bit extra massaging of conversation, where you do want them to paint a room, you do want them to maybe get some things done, she's very helpful to get those other things done that are going to be tough conversation to have with somebody. And then obviously the thing is to get the photographer there, and to show who you're using for your photography, and how those photos are going to look, and what you're doing, what kind of photography you're going to offer, the drones, the Matterports, what does that look like in your presentation? Are you going to have the photography who does the floor plan layouts, where there's going to be a floor plan along with the pictures in there? You decide who you're using, and share with your client what that's going to look like for them. We also have to remember that a seller is selling a home, how many times in their lifetime? We are the ones who are working with sellers every day. We know all of this. They don't know all of this. They know a lot, but maybe they don't know what you're going to do. So show up with your value of what you do, how you're going to represent their property, and to get it sold. Besides just putting a sign in the yard, and a lockbox on the door, and photography. Like, how are you getting them prepared for the process of sale, and preparing them for it with the all the new information that we have going on? Let me see if I've missed anything in the chat. Hire the professional, yes. And so I'd like to I know we're getting here at 10 o'clock, so I'd like to just go over a couple of things really quick, though. I put my little elephant in the room for this conversation. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The NAR has recently passed some new rules. And are you familiar with them? Have you dove into learning everything about them? And are you familiar with what's going on with the MLS system that you're associated with, and the rules that the MLS has with it? I was on a meeting with somebody was in this SOMLS, and I'm not familiar with the rules there. However, what was shared with that MLS system was there were a lot of fines that were going to be applied. And it's not an MLS system I'm in. Maybe somebody in this meeting was going to be, so I wanted to share that and say, hey, you should probably go look into that. I don't have the information on that. RMLS, I have the link right here. This is their huge Q&A with videos, Q&A, everything. I called the RMLS, asked a few questions. They referred me to the site, and she said, we're happy to answer any question you have. However, you should go and look at this. It's a comprehensive amount of information. Everything's in there. You could probably get your question answered and then some going in and looking at this. And when I did go in and look in that, and I breezed through their Q&A that they had, the question and their own answer, there was a question in there about whether or not you could have the BAC and communicate about that anywhere. And they had the question, whether it was on your own website, in a document, in the private remarks, all these different things that they said, can you put it in any of these places? The answer obviously was no. And their fine was $5,000, up to $5,000. And so it's very important for you to be very aware of what's going on out there right now and the fines that could possibly come down on you if you're doing it wrong. I don't know about, if they're going to give you a slap on the hand, or if they're just going to immediately, like you've had enough time to learn this and you're a seasoned agent, you should know. The WVMLS is not a part of NAR. However, they are working with the NAR rule. They're going with the market trend of the BAC is out. So the BAC is no longer in the WVMLS. However, they are not enforcing any fines. So I learned that. So I'm just here to say, what steps have you taken to go learn more about what's going on for you in your area? So Raymond, you have other brokerages making their own BAC website. It kind of felt like it would be a major issue. Yeah, and there's definitely some sensitive things like that I'm still learning about myself, because I had heard at one point, oh, well, if it's not something that is coming from the MLS to your site, it's not streaming from the MLS to your site, then yes, you can do what you want on your site. However, I'm not really sure if that's okay. I think you would have to talk with your broker, whether or not we can do that. I've also seen a question in the WVMLS's, they had, if you go to their front page and you click on their link, they have this really neat cheat sheet of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable on what you can write in private remarks. And it wasn't just about buyer agent commission. It was also about concessions and some other different remarks that were in there that I was like, oh, good. I'm glad these were favorable. I like using these remarks. And it just reminded me of some remarks I could utilize for my seller. And then there was ones that was like, absolutely no, not acceptable. And they will be watching for, you cannot say these things in your private remarks. I also asked the WVMLS, hey, are you going to be doing, because in the closing notes that we had from when a sale was closed, there was for the appraiser notes, what concessions the seller participated with, $10,000 towards closing costs, new roof, whatever we were going to say in there. Were they making a spot now for us to talk about the after it sold that there was a buyer agent concession, commission paid, that kind of a thing? And they said that they've just enhanced the size of the closing notes box for agents to utilize it for information that they needed to say after the closing. So that's what I learned about that. I wanted to share it with everybody here. I don't know what RMLS is doing on that. So
Raymond had his hand up there.
Raymond, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want you're the only one to ask questions here, but I've had several conversations on this because, well, being new, not really having any funds on a lot of closings, so I have to be very careful on not getting fined, right? So that's kind of a major aspect for me. And so in several conversations on my podcast, I actually interviewed the president, Leslie Smith of NAR, on my podcast, and we talked about, the benefits about being a realtor. She vaguely touched on the NAR lawsuit. She had some orders where she couldn't talk about it. So I did reach out to a realtor attorney, friend of mine, and she is going over the details on her aspect to kind of tear apart what that kind of really means, for a lot of different aspects of what we do as realtors, moving forward. And so I also contacted RMLS. So RMLS basically said you cannot have anything on any of the commissions anywhere on anything. If it's a third party website and it's not directly connected to RMLS, they said that you'd have to check with your brokerage.
Right.
So I had basically thought about a lot of ways that I personally would do, and I think it makes a lot of sense. If and this comes with being a listing agent myself and having several listings myself right now, and what I'm seeing as offers coming in. Um, and it's not that they're rejecting the offers based off of having to compensate a buyer agent commission. They're rejecting the offer because of the other conditions of the offers, not solely based off of just the BACs. So I think it's on the seller listing, on the listing agent side and the buyer agent side, it's going to be more understandable and automatically assumable that a BAC would be negotiated, just something that we would just mentally understand of each other, that that's something that we would always negotiate. And I think every offer is going to have a BAC in it, because ultimately the buyer is looking at trying to make the whole entire transaction more affordable to them. So one of the things that they're going to do, and I've seen in my increase from being a listing agent, I've seen more not just BAC accommodations, but also closing fee accommodations. So that's been kind of an issue that I've come across. But as far as BACs, I've seen a lot of offers just being like, hey, we're going to put this offer in concession to cover BACs. So those have been a lot of things that I've kind of, I'm like, I always tell my sellers, hey, look, this is what they're going to come at us with, and we need to be prepared for it. Just because you didn't pay for it when you purchased your house, somebody that sold you the house did pay for that back in the day. And so I on the seller side, that's what I negotiate with them. But I think it's good to maybe get out to a lot of realtors that it is something that we are going to have to understand in our hearts. That's going to be something that we negotiate automatically. And
thank you, Raymond. We are at the front of all of this. So, it is where we are right now. And just like any market shift that's happening right now, yes, I agree with you. We're likely to see BACs on offers because of the type of market we're in. If we were in a seller's market like we were before, maybe not, right? So everything is based on what's happening now and the conversation that's happening now with the BAC, but it can always change. It's not indefinite. So right now we just want to, that's the reason why it's like a market. That's the reason why whenever I went into a listing presentation before, when I even chatted with them about BACs before NAR, I would show the spreadsheet showing all the sold listings, the active listings, and the pending listings. And I would show exactly what the BAC was being offered on them if I knew that I was going to be in a conversation of how much do I offer the buyer agent commission. That was a conversation I was still having before NAR. And I was showing them, well, this is the average, this is the market right now of what's happening. Did you want to still do this more or less? It was always their decision. It was always something I was always negotiating with them in a sense, but when they saw it, and that's what's so sad about it, is they just don't see it right now, right? So, however, that's where if we stay in collaboration with agents, we understand what's going on, we have enough transactions, we know what the market is doing right now, and every transaction is different. Every seller's situation is different, how much net that they have, where they've listed the property, did they list it below, over, there's so many variations, and about that offer that's going to determine how you're going to be making offer. And are you in multiple offers?
Right. Yeah, and I
But
think
those
also
are still happening.
it's interesting. This is a scenario that just happened last week with one of the agents in our group. Um, she had the listing, got to inspection. The buyers came back with a fairly large punch list of things, and he was a little like, "Mm." And so he agreed to do a few things, but also in the resolution, he he insisted that the buyer's agent's commission be reduced by 1% as part of to cover the costs. So I think we're going to have to pay attention, because I do think sellers feel at this point that buyers agents commission are not only negotiable with what we said and what we agree to and we do the listing, but throughout the transaction. Yeah, he used the buyer's agent's commission to essentially cover the spread on the repairs. Ultimately, it killed the deal. I think it really, and we had talked about it pretty extensively before while we were trying to negotiate it, because I think it poisoned the well in a way that it killed it. So I
Well,
think
I think we all have our own opinion about it right now. I just don't wrap my head around the fact that the buyer agent commission is on a contract with a buyer and the listing agent is on a contract with a seller, and somehow the buyer agent commission is the one on the chopping block personally, in the negotiations.
right.
And I know that I will be on, I will represent buyers, I will represent sellers. I think it's important for, agents to understand that we're both going to be on either end of this at some point. And that's also the reason why it's important that it starts with us in this conversation in the listing, as we go forward. And it really depends upon the agent's conversation with that seller when taking that listing, on whether or not the seller is and has an open mind to work with the buyer agent commission, or has a closed mind with it. And so I know that, I am mostly a listing agent. So on my listings, when I get the phone calls, I understand what you mean, Craig, where somebody's like, what's the commission? There's a very, very nice, delicate way that it's being approached now, where they're asking a lot of other questions. I just wanted to chat with you about and how things are going, and the seller, and oh, by the way, and I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I think that also is a step up of the game for a buyer's agent to take the time to reach out to that listing agent. If the listing agent is willing to take the call, is the other thing too, because I've also been seeing send anything to this email. I'm not answering any questions. I'm not answering my phone. They're redirecting conversation, of not having that conversation. I've also seen sellers, listing agents doing that.
Yeah.
So
And
it really
don't
depends
be,
upon
just
what
for the
you're
record,
doing.
don't be that agent. I mean, it makes this job's hard enough, especially when we can do this, we can work together in a collegiate way, and to get to the finish line. I always say to my people I'm training, we can be the biggest impediment to the success of a transaction, because at the end of the day, buyers want to buy, sellers want to sell, we want to get paid. Don't be a jerk. Let's all work together and get this thing to the finish line, so everybody gets what they want. We can check your ego at the door. There's no room for that in this
We are
process.
professionals. We are doing a job. We are going through tasks every day. We have outgoing expenses. This is a career. This is a profession, and we need to show up with that. And that's the reason why I feel that in your buyer agent presentation and your seller presentation, you need to show up. Obviously, there's a question of whether or not you're worth what we're asking for in a buyer agent commission. And even we've always been walking in the door to a seller presenting our value to be listed with them, and have them sign a listing agreement with us, paying us as listing agents. We have been always walking and providing value and saying, this is what I'm worth, and confirm and get it on paper and contract signed for the commission. And the buyer's agents, have really had a very lax, some have not done any presentations. It's just been really got a phone call and go open a door. One thing that has been steady with my team is that didn't happen very often. We were always looking for the point of time that we could get in front of them, show that we have a 3-ring binder with tons of information. We want to go over the process. We want to get commitment. We want them to understand this is a job, a profession that we're doing, and we're just not opening doors. And so we got the loyalty commitment to working with us. Now it's just on a buyer agent commission agreement.
Yeah.
So
I actually feel like buyer's agents, I was talking with my group about this today. I feel like good buyer agents are going to freaking kill it in the next couple of years. They really are. I mean, if you're willing to do the hard work, understand how to manage these objections, understand how to, engage with these, with listing agents. I think there's good, because a lot of old timers, like myself included, like, well, I don't want to be a buyer's agent anymore. Like, but I think we're gonna always, the bad ones are always gonna be there, but the good ones are gonna they're gonna kill it. So
right, the silver
don't shy
lining to
away.
it is that you have to improve your expertise, your knowledge, and you have to know how to present your value, and
Yes.
you have to be a good communicator, and you have to negotiate well. So it is raising the bar for all of
And
the
practice
agents out there.
handling these objections and dealing, like not only with the buyer side, but also with listing agents. But I really feel like there's going to be a lot less of them, but the good ones are going to shine, and you're going to be able to be very busy in the coming years.
Yeah, it's been really great that Casey brought up the word safety. I'm not sure if anybody saw in the unfortunate situation with the Ontario agent in Canada. I saw a little bit about that. Has anybody seen and heard about that? She went out to show a rural property and was out of service range. And unfortunately, her body was found 3 days, burned body was found 3 days later.
Yeah.
So, the other, to me, silver lining with this is, I'm a woman. It doesn't mean anything that, you're a man and I'm a woman. However, there is a difference. And safety has always been, an element for us as women in the profession. And Casey and I, and any other women that I know in the industry that I've talked with and said, hey, I can be your accountability partner with that. If you are going out on an appointment that you're concerned about, let's have a plan, a process, and let me know. So sometimes I'll get a random text like, hey, I'm going to go to this property at such and such, and know the protocol. The protocol is to call within the 15 minutes to say X, have her call me, those kinds of things. And so we have that going on. And this is what's great about kind of what's going on is the buyer really, before walking in a door, before you are allowed to open a door to a buyer, in order for you to get paid, you have to have a buyer agreement signed. The buyer doesn't have to have an agreement signed for them to walk in the door. You have to have an agreement signed with the buyer to get paid to open that door. So making sure that knowing that we have to do that means that's also stepping up the raise the bar on who are we opening the door for. Yeah. And meeting with them and knowing more about them before we're doing that.
Yeah, and having that situational awareness, that really might be a really good a call for us to do, or a class for us to do, is on safety, because it sucks every year. Something, multiple agents are hurt or killed, and we have to be aware of that. I mean, and it's not just men; it's not just women. It seems, unfortunately, always more than heavily skewed towards women, which sucks because my wife's an agent as well. But having that situational awareness and being able to defend yourself, even as a man, I never
and the
go.
thing is it's that, and there's also the open houses, right? So I never do an open house by myself. I don't ever. I always have at least an agent or a lender with me. That's how I've always been. Not actually, it's not how I've always been. It's what I made sure I was happening at a certain point in my career. And so anytime that I have an open house, either, Casey or Giselle's available. If they're not, then I'm texting lenders and I find somebody who's going to do it with me. And then if you have a 2-story, maybe you have multiple people there at something like that, depending upon what our open houses are certainly bringing. So that's the other reason why I think it's important for you to show up to open houses if you're not doing one on the weekend, to check in to see how things are going, what kind of traffic they're seeing, those kinds of things. You can get a gauge and feel on the activity of open houses. I've always seen, at least in the first half hour, is usually where we see the most. Then we usually see a little bit of a lull, and then we see a round of people again near the end of the open house. And sometimes I see it steady throughout. However, all of the open houses that I've been doing the last few months, there's not been one that I've done that hasn't produced multiple people at an open house. And usually when you're talking with somebody, you can't manage the person who's about to walk in. And so you need an extra person there for safety and also managing, because you're also in somebody's home that has valuables and things. And you want to make sure that you are aware of where everybody is in the house. There's a whole thing about open houses and safety.
That's a whole
But
other class
to say, that's my tidbit on that is if you're going to do an open house, try to do it with someone, or at least know that somebody knows that you're there and you're going to be in communication with somebody while you're there, if you're unable to have somebody present with you at an open house.
Yeah. So we've got a few minutes. Any last
Yep.
comments, questions? Christine's done an amazing job just laying out a ton of great information. We definitely appreciate it. Any last minute questions from the comments, or unmute?
Yeah. Please, anyone.
I don't have any music to play, so
Boop, 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 boop. Anyway, so yeah, thank you everyone for being here. And I hope that you did take away quite a bit from there. If there's anything that I missed with any links that you might have wanted, or some of those things that I had mentioned, just reach out to me. There's my number, 541-231-4535. I can make sure to email them to you. I appreciate you all for being here. And again, I hope you took a lot away.
Great. Thank you, Christine. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for sitting in today. We appreciate it. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.